Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell, mom of 18 and executive director of the Doula Co-op of Nevada. With more than 15 years in birth work, I've had the privilege of walking beside families through life's transitions. My work centers on connection, community, and amplifying voices that too often go unheard. Each of these episodes is an honest conversation about the messy, beautiful, and transformative experiences that shape us as parents and as people. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the incredible guests who show up with courage and authenticity to share their stories with us. Let's dive right in. Welcome to Becoming Parents. Today I am with Tony Berardo. Tony, how are you today?
Amazing, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you because this is such a great perspective, and I want you to jump in and share your parenting journey with us.
Thanks. Yeah, it's I don't know if anybody can relate out there, but me, I'm about to be 41. But when we kind of started the whole process of having kids, I wasn't really too excited about it because my 20s and 30s, I don't know. I never saw myself with kids. It wasn't part of my long-term strategy. I was like, I want to travel. I want to, drink all the time and not have any responsibilities and, sip margaritas and hang out on the beach. And this fantasy that I had felt so good. And then we kind of went through this whole wild journey, which I'll share with. But when we got to the end of it and the day my daughter was born, like everything changed. There was this rush of just gratitude and emotion and love and something that I never thought I would enjoy. And now it's like, I can't even imagine having a margarita on the beach, because all I want to do is hang out with my daughter. So it's funny how that shifted. It could be a lot of things. I mean, maybe it's you get older and maybe that's why, because we didn't have our kid until I was about 38. So maybe there's a little bit of maturity aspect to that. But our quick parenting journey was my wife. We've been together over 10 years, and she was a teacher. So she's always had that maternal instinct, and she always wanted to have multiple kids. And, when we got engaged and married and all that, I kind of like brushed her under the rug. I was like, I'll talk her out of it. Like, she's not going to want kids. I know how to sell this. Yeah, it didn't go well. I was like, I know how to sell this thing. She'll be fine. She'll live, I'll take her on a couple trips and she'll like, yeah, I don't want kids. Well, that didn't happen. So we ended up, of course, trying like on our honeymoon, like most people. And, nothing clicked. Like a couple misfires. And we were like, oh, maybe you're pregnant. Let's take a test. Negative. And we're like, oh, all right, well, no big deal. Well, that went on for years. And then we kind of got a little concerned. So we both went to go get tested. I'm fine. My boys were fine. They were swimming just fine. And her girls, she was fine. She was fertile. Everything was good. But for whatever reason, I don't know. We weren't clicking. We weren't matching. Yep. So we figured out what our options would be. We decided to go the IUI route first. And if people don't know, they could look it up. I'm no expert in it. But we went IUI 3 times. Obviously, my wife dealt with the biggest baggage there physically and mentally. And that didn't work. So then our fertility doctor was like, well, we could try IVF, which is a little bit more aggressive. And obviously it's more expensive and they go through the whole thing. And we did that 2 times. It didn't work. So now she's 3 IUIs in, 2 IVFs in, still nothing. And by this time, remember, we've been trying for years. So now we're spending, I think at that point, we were up to like almost $200,000 we spent in this whole process. It was a 3-year journey, probably 24 negative pregnancy tests. So it's a lot. Obviously, it's a lot for me, but it's also, I mean, I can't speak for her. I could just tell you that she was beat up. And, we talked about it before you went on air here, but it was, physically for them, emotionally, just the hormones you get pumped in, the shots that you have to do a couple times a week. It's so much. And it's so heartbreaking because there's nothing I could really do about it except try to be supportive. But then also, like, how do we have the conversation of like, what if this doesn't work?
Right.
All this money, and then what's the next step? Adoption, surrogacy, like, what do we do? Thankfully, though, the 3rd IVF took. And now it's like, whoa, you don't even do a pregnancy test, right? Because typically we go 2 weeks in, they do blood work, and then they call you. So we didn't even get the sexiness of having the pregnancy test, which kind of stinks.
Bummer. Yeah.
Of course, like we took it right afterwards, so that way we could like just video it and have it in our memory. But they called us, which was kind of a little bit more powerful, I would say, like emotionally, because the doctor called and said, "Okay, guys, are you sitting down?" Very serious.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're like, we
Don't.
look at each other, we hold each other's hands, and we kind of expected her to say nothing happened. And then she goes, "You're pregnant." And then we just, we bawled, both of us bawled. And
Right.
I think that's kind of where I knew, oh, this is what this parenting thing's about. This is the feeling that I get. And that was like the first moment where I felt that I wanted to be a father. It didn't hit me fully until in the delivery room, but
Yeah.
that's when the first wave of emotions happened. So anyway, here we are. Fast forward, we got our daughter. That's at 2.5 now, and I've dedicated literally my entire life to make sure that whatever business I'm in, I've owned my own company for 4 years, but the whole goal of that, as we were going through this IUI IVF process, is I was like, I want to be able to work from home and be able to spend time with my kid. And now I design my entire business around that philosophy.
It's so crazy, like margaritas on the beach forever.
And nope,
And now you're like laptop, beach chair with dog. It's
that's right.
I
Yeah.
think one of the issues with parenting is that this is the example I give. It's like telling somebody what salt tastes like who's never tasted salt. It is
Mm,
impossible to do. It's
so true.
impossible to say this is how it's going to, and we all feel a little differently too. But
Sure.
you know, as a doula, when I was in private practice, I was always like, you know what, Tony, this baby's going to be born. They're going to put the baby on mom's chest. And all I can tell you at that point is you will not know what's going on in the room and you will be crying. And dads are like, not me. That
Yep.
I don't have all that heebie-jeebie. And I'm like, 100% of the time, that dad
Every
has
time.
no idea what's going on in the room and is crying.
Oh yeah.
And you can't do anything to prep for this.
That's right.
And you can read all
Yeah.
the books, you can even really want kids, you can be excited about it. I remember one of my daughters when she was pregnant, she's like, first of all, I'm going to be a much better mom than you. I'm like, I hope so, man. I hope you take everything I did, everything I've done in my life, and you one up me. That is definitely a goal of for my kids. And
Yeah.
second, we'll see when we get there. And then having a child call me with a 2-year-old crying, like, how did you do this? And you know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah.
she's like, well, I've been a nanny, I've taken all these classes. Like, dude, nothing is gonna prepare you for this.
Yeah.
Nothing. Um,
Yeah.
and for
Well,
your
it's even if you put it up in your head of like
yeah,
what could be and you prepare yourself, there's things that other parents don't even warn you about. Like, they always say, well, make sure you get some sleep because you're never that's kind of true, sort of. But
nah.
the struggle that I realized was forget about like not getting sleep. You can survive. It's your relationship with your spouse. That's when you get tested during those moments
Oh,
because you don't understand that you're
yeah.
not getting sleep. Sure, the baby's not sleeping. You're frustrated, blah, 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 blah. But you're going to argue way more with your spouse in those like first 18 months, having a kid that doesn't sleep than you ever have in a decade being married without kids.
And there's
So
no way, it's not like when you were in college and you were drinking and you pulled an all-nighter and went to class.
way different.
It's
Yeah, it's crazy diffent. It's
Oh,
so weird
also
though,
your
to
wife
me.
will have like the equivalent of 100 birth control pills in her body, running through her body every single day. She'll be
That's right.
physically healing, and still, even as like a woman going through it, it's a blur for some people, and for men going through it, they're like, yeah, I don't know how to understand. I understand on paper, I get what
Yeah.
she's going through, but and you are in a different position because going through, and that's what we talked about in the beginning. I went through infertility until IVF. IUI wasn't even on the table for me, but I did the 10 months of 7 surgeries and Clomid and Provera and feeling
Mhm.
like someone you don't like took over your body. And just,
Yeah.
it's such a, and then the roller coaster of all those dozens of pregnancy tests. And yeah, it's hard for you, super hard for you. And for her, it's like, how do you even relate to what she's going through physically and emotionally? And it's like you want to do it, but you're forced to feel a certain way in order to play this game.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
it's so hard, it's so hard. So
Yeah.
you guys went IUI 3 times and then IVF 3 times, and holy crap. When I
Sure.
read you came on, I was like, my heart, I cannot imagine. Because then
Yeah.
you feel like shame and failure and like your body's broken and I can't do something that should be easy, which is an untrue thing that we
Yeah.
teach ourselves.
Right.
Um, wow, what a journey.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. It
arguing,
was wild.
tell me, like, we don't talk about that. And again, I always feel like pregnancy, labor and delivery, and postpartum, each of those, 10 things could happen, right? There's 10 side effects, so to speak. Everyone's going to get
Sure.
seven. We don't know which seven you're going to get, and we don't know how severe they're going to be. So it's almost impossible to prep people for
Mhm.
what is this going to be like? Because even from one child to the next child, same couple, you
Yeah.
know, you've been through it before, but it's different even every time within the same couple. And so
Yeah.
talk me through your relationship through IVF and through all of that, and then parenting and what
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah, I mean the whole IVF thing obviously was wild for a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously she's, going through all this stuff and I'm trying to be supportive and you also want to be the rock, right? You don't want to be Debbie Downer saying, "Hey, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I never I never said this to my wife, but I would imagine if I did it'd piss her off. But if I said, "Hey, don't worry if it doesn't work, no big deal."
Oh my gosh.
Could
Or
you
hey, you
imagine?
can always adopt, or hey, you can
Yeah. Like that's the
next
worst,
time.
especially for someone like her who's, she's been a teacher for a decade. She's always wanted kids. This is like to her purpose. Like, she wants to be a stay-at-home mom. She doesn't want to work. That's not right for everybody, but that is her. So I had to figure out how to navigate that, side of things where I'm trying to be supportive, but also like I'm trying to be a realist. We only have so much money in the bank. We can't do this thing forever. So we have to be a little bit optimistic. We have to do everything we can. And I was kind of more on the side of checking the boxes to make sure we're doing everything right. Cause I didn't want her to worry about, oh, so we have to, do this shot today. And then we have to research this. And then I need to make sure that I'm sleeping, upside down. And I didn't want her to worry about all that crap. So I literally like I put together a checklist. We did it together. We game planned. We kind of treated it like a business a little bit, which
That's
that
great.
and that kind of worked for us. Um, Mainly because again, I think the structure and the inconsistency that we've dealt with 3 years prior, trying to do everything, it
Yeah.
was so like out of our control. I think having some sort of system in place and organizing it properly and doing shots at the exact same time every day and making sure we're not going out to dinner to avoid that, make sure we're not drinking just in case that affects it. Like all these little things, holding each other accountable and having these checklists to make sure that we were both on the same page. And we treated it as if, hey, we did everything right. We did it for X amount of weeks, X amount of months. If it doesn't happen, at least we know we did everything.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to make sure we went through the whole process and maybe she was drinking a bottle of wine every week and then she doesn't get pregnant. And then we're like, well, shit, we probably shouldn't have had the bottle of wine. Like we really wanted to, dot our T's and cross our I's. So that's kind of where I landed on that side of thing. I try to manage it that way. And then, when we finally found out we were pregnant, of course, it was amazing, and we started the process of doing everything we could to make sure this was a perfect home for our daughter. And we found out it was a girl right away because when you do these type of things, typically you get the embryos and they tell you the sex of each one. So that was amazing. So we were super excited to decorate pink and sage and beige colors all over the place. So we started that, and I'm telling you, I'm not very religious, but I think whoever is helping us out up there and guiding us, I deserved a girl. You know,
I can
like
do this.
I deserve is probably not the. I needed a girl. That's probably the best word because I feel like a boy would have kept me on the same path, mentally. In terms of, you know, being strong and being the man and making sure I'm doing everything right and, yada, 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 kind of like my dad did with me. And, hey, get up, man, slap on your boots and go to work type of thing. Now I'm kind of like, I listen more. I'm more compassionate. I'm softer. I'm still strong for my daughter, of course, and I'm teaching her everything that she needs to do to be strong in this wild world. But I also understood that it's kind of a bigger responsibility, at least for me, to turn that switch because I was totally the opposite. But
Ah,
now that I'm a girl dad, I'm starting to understand instead of being a man that, you know, she looks up to, I'm kind of like setting the stage for a man that she eventually might find one day, and raising that bar for her. Of course, I want to set the good example, but I think that's the big responsibility girls have had, where you really kind of have to change your whole attitude, man. Like everything from, how you approach things and how you narrate life. And I'm just, man, I'm just realizing I had so many flaws, and she has humbled me and made me a way better person. So I'm very blessed that she ended up being a girl.
I think you are intensely introspective, though, which I wish all dads kind of took that step back to gain a level of clarity, even admitting like I don't have all the answers and I am very imperfect, but I am modeling the relationship with my wife that I want her to eventually have, and the type of man that I want her to eventually date. And who does that person look like? That's massive. And our youngest is 16, and we're always hugging and kissing and butt grabbing and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And she's like, ew, gross. My husband and I are very affectionate with each other, but whatever your relationship dynamic is, modeling it. And, he said to her recently, well, I hope someday when you have a relationship that you're with a man that loves you and treats you like I feel about your mom. And that is probably the most powerful. It gets me choked up, right? That is the most powerful thing. And even in discipline, I think, when kids get into trouble or they're sassing back their mom, when the dad, instead of saying, don't do that, or that's not appropriate, or don't be disrespectful, saying, don't treat my wife that way.
Ooh, that's
There's a
huge.
shift in perspective in how it's the same discipline, it's the same thing, but like,
Yep.
that's my wife that you're treating badly, and I don't want anyone to treat my wife badly, or, or saying your mom if that's not comfortable. But I mean, I
Yeah.
remember one time he said, I don't want you to ever talk to my wife like that again. I don't talk to her like that, and you're not allowed to either. And I was like,
That's huge.
I was the wife. I was like, okay, yeah, she should never. Also, we need to go have some alone time.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
like, it's very powerful, just the way you're presenting and the lens you're viewing parenting through, because you're going to screw up. I mean, we feel like failures and screw ups every single day. We like,
Yeah.
we're not going to get it right. We're going to be sick. We're going to have a bad day. Work's going to be whatever. Things are going to happen. We're going to be exhausted. We're going to wish, I wish I'd handled that one a little bit better, because with kids, it's like right here in your face in that moment, and you have to
Yeah.
react. You can't be like, let me think about that temper tantrum for a minute and go determine how I'm going to handle this.
I'm,
It's different. And I love
that's so
that you
true.
treated it like a business and a
Yeah.
checklist, because
Thanks.
that made you involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I felt very out of place, especially because I wasn't able to. I felt like everything I was saying was wrong, which it probably was. Um, but I learned really quickly that she doesn't need me to tell her what to do. She needs control because she feels very out of control. So I said, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to like make a checklist, and that way you hold yourself accountable? She's like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. And she put together a binder, and I had all the brochures and like what to do, what not to do. We printed out a bunch of stuff of like meal plans that might help potentially, and like all that stuff we kept in a little IVF binder, which we still have as a memento. But
Yeah.
I think putting that together and watching her do that and like highlight certain areas and do check, it again gave her that sense of control. And I just kind of sat back, and I was the puppeteer essentially of this wild idea, and
Yeah.
then just let her roll with it. And at least that small little thing, at least she can control. And, obviously it worked out well to our benefit, but even if it didn't, at least we knew we did everything right.
I know when I was going through that first section of infertility, they had me do a basal body temperature every day, and they told you to have
Sure.
sex every other day. And sex, like the most fun thing you do with this person that you love more than anything, becomes like a chore. And it's
Yeah.
really hard to keep your
We hated that.
relationship good, not just with
Mhm.
the stress and with like the shots, but just like the things about your relationship that maybe that I loved the most.
The intimacy. Yeah.
Oh, the intimacy just becomes like a box to check off. And so it's just really challenging.
Yeah.
Talk to me about becoming when she was born, and you guys argued, because this is probably one of the most common things. And even if people talk about it, I don't think you get it or understand it until you're in it. But I'd love to hear
Yeah.
your perspective on that.
Yeah. I mean, we, again, we've been married over 10 years and we never,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember a time that we argued. Honestly, we've disagreed and like had little, little things about like maybe our friends and, we're like, hey, I can't believe you did that. Well, I can't believe you did that. All right, whatever, screw it. Like that type of stuff. It was never raising our voice at each other. The first time we raised our voice to each other aggressively was, I think, when our kid was maybe like 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
And we didn't, again, looking back at this, the first I've maybe thought about it this heavily, but like, I don't even think we said anything to each other. It was just that. And then we, did our own separate thing. And, she put the kid down and I went to the couch and that was it. And the next morning, you don't think about it. You're trying to raise this little human. So it's not like we're like, hey, we should talk about last night. It never happened. But then every other night we'd get into like a little tiff. Maybe it was like, the baby was crying and she couldn't, console her or calm her down. So then I took her and then of course she stops crying. And then that was a nightmare. Because then of course mom feels like what,
Failure?
you know what I mean? Failure. And then she gets mad at me and I'm like, wait, listen, it's a roller coaster. And then, a couple days later, she would do the same thing, right? Like I couldn't console her and then mom consoled her and then it worked and she felt grateful. But then I'm like, kind of like, well, hold on, babe, you didn't need to take her. I needed a few more minutes and I would have calmed her down. So then I started feeling that. So then it was like these little tiffs here and there. And it just, I'm telling you, for a year and a half, I mean, every 4 or 5 days, we would get in these little 2-minute little arguments. And it was about a bunch of different stuff, whether it was, what are we going to eat? Is she going to cook? Am I going to cook? Like, who's putting who down? We weren't getting sleep. So that was a nightmare. It was just it was a very rough time. And not that we were ever on the brink of it, but I could tell you from experience now, I know exactly how people get divorced with kids.
Yeah.
Like that's the reason why. It's resentment. It's the lack of XYZ. Maybe one partner's not doing something else than the other partner should. And maybe you're not listening. Maybe you're talking too much. Like all these things while you're not getting sleep, while you're not eating, while you're not taking care of your mental and physical health, all these factors while you're also trying to like raise this little human correctly. And you're holding in your emotion, right? Because you don't want to scream and yell in front of the baby. So then maybe you hold things in that normally you would talk about, but now you don't have the time to talk about it because by the time the kid goes down, now you're exhausted. You don't want to talk to your partner. You don't want to have sex anymore. Like now I get it now. And also by the way, shit's expensive. So now you're stressed about money. So it's like I get it, man. And I'm a kid of divorce. So I know exactly why these guys got divorced. Not that they're right for each other. They hate each other. So it worked out well. But I think overall, I think me being born, not that it was bad on them, but I can understand it now. I get it.
I was part of divorce, but like I was born in 1970 and I think life was a lot different and same thing. I am relieved they got divorced. That would have been awful. But then I got divorced. So the things like this is never going to happen. And then it does happen in different circumstances. And I have like a lot of retrospect now, but kids don't make any situation easier. They make every situation more challenging, not maliciously, intentionally.
Of course.
Now you said your wife wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Did was she able to do that? Okay, wow.
Well, good news, bad news. So bad news, no, for the first 2.5 years because we luckily both work from home, but she's been with a great company for almost 10 years, benefits, 401k, all that. But then just last week, she got laid off from that company.
Oh.
So she is now a stay-at-home mom. Yeah.
Okay.
She is now staying. So, unfortunately, we're still looking for a new gig for her. I mean, the long-term plan is to have her be a stay-at-home mom, obviously, but I don't know. I mean, she wants it. Me, again, I look at everything like a business. Regretfully, it's just unintentional.
I don't know if that's regretfully. I think it's unemotionally, but also
probably unemotionally. Yes.
I mean, I like logic, so I think calendars and structure make sense.
Yeah.
it can be a little lacking in emotion, but it gets everything done with the least amount of stress. So anyway,
Right.
I'm sticking up for you.
No, no, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I needed to hear it. Yeah, because you know, even at this moment, obviously, I'm giving her space, and we're figuring out game plans, and I'm trying to do what I can to help. But I'm also just giving her space and letting her enjoy this time. But I'm also like one of the strongest believers that there's a couple things that allow us to be human, and that is relationships and work, whatever that means to you. And I don't mean work in the sense of work 9 to 5 for a great corporation and 401k and all that. I just mean like work, like doing something you love. So maybe that's just painting and then selling your paintings on Etsy. That's work, but at least it's your passion and you like doing it. But there's purpose to that. And I think the argument could be said, well, being a mother is purpose, 100%. But for how long? You know, what happens when they're 15 or 18 and then they move out? Now what? Do you have purpose? Are you happy with what you're doing 9 to 5 when you don't have a kid in the house? So I think having some sort of structure and idea of what you want to do, and she's not there yet, which is unfortunate, but she'll get there. Um, but I think having a purpose and something to do with work is very beneficial. And we were very lucky to where we both worked from home. So
Oh, good. Okay.
she was able to, obviously work from a certain amount of time. And then she would take the kid and then I would take her, vice versa. So we kind of had like shifts, which was
Yeah.
amazing. So we were both kind of like stay at home parents, but we at least both made money.
Oh, that's
And
great.
now we have less salary. So then it's like, okay, she could be a stay at home mom and I could probably afford to take care of everything. But then I always go back to like what I saw being a kid of divorce. My dad worked 3 jobs. My mom didn't work. She worked occasionally. There was little things she did on the side, like babysitting and bartending and stuff like that. But there's a resentment there, I think. And I like to always tell myself, I'm stronger than that. I'm not gonna. But if she's spending every moment with the kid, and I'm working even harder to make sure we're making money, will I resent her? Man, I like to think I'm not gonna, but listen, if I'm working really, really hard and I'm stressed out about money and she's buying Starbucks every week, is our relationship going to be the best? Probably not. So I told her I think the goal is not for her to find something that pays the bills or for just find a little something. Give me 10, 20 hours a week. Maybe it's a part-time gig, something you like to do that you're just making a little dough, little just so you have some purpose, some structure. Wake up every day and get dressed, throw your makeup on, do something from home. Maybe you're a insurance adjuster and you're talking, maybe you're doing customer service virtually. You're still home, you still have a shift, and you're still having fun and doing your work, but also you can clock out and hang out with the kid. But I think that's where we're landing now because we just need a little money to help pay for some insurance, just a little
Right.
dough to get some flexibility. So
Yeah, I mean, again, very insightful because I think one thing that happens to stay at home, I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years, but I did stuff. And
yeah,
I think what
it's key.
happens sometimes when you stay at home is your entire identity becomes your children. And I
Mm,
don't think that's healthy because
yeah,
one, that's why like we're almost empty nesters. We're psyched. We're
yeah,
psyched.
sure.
Like
Yeah, I can't wait.
we haven't been alone since we were 21, and we haven't. I mean, I don't think you should be so psyched you do a crappy job, but I don't think you should be
Right.
crying in your coffee either, because if you have an identity outside of your children, something that gives you purpose that you love, you
Mm,
don't feel that way. You feel a sadness that childhood went by so fast, even if you cherished it, that it's over, that but you feel like it's a new phase in your life instead of feeling like it's devastating and you have nothing to live for. And
totally.
so very insightful on the front end for you to be like, no, something gives you purpose. And also I think, people, it feels like you're in this dark cave alone with your kids losing your freaking mind, right?
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
it can Not all stay-at-home moms are like this. It can be exactly what they want and they love it and the dad loves it and the whole thing, which I had for
Right.
12 years. But I also didn't lose my identity to my kids. I also had
That's right.
purpose, other things going on. So I think that's really important. And it feels good. I felt like I had to ask my husband permission to get Starbucks once a week. And
Yeah.
let me tell you how terrible that is in a relationship.
Yeah. No more Target and Starbucks runs, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't
And
want to ask permission for an allowance.
right, totally. And I think again that also goes back to she understands this now. But like the only thing I want to do is I want to be a stay-at-home dad. And I don't want to work more so she doesn't have to work. And she understands that. And that's the yin and yang I think we have, because I saw what my dad went through. I don't want to work for the next 20 years and miss, my kids' little milestones. And then the mom gets to see it all as well. So I think,
Yep.
and that I think is what's lacking in society, where if we don't have present fathers, now you have this thing where dads maybe do grow up and the kids grow up and they're 18 years old. And now the dad and the mom don't really agree because the dad's been working his butt off the whole time. And during that 18 years, the relationship between mom, dad, and kids is just shattered. And not everybody can handle it because it's tough. And I think a lot of dads out there don't want to work 3 jobs and work their butt off. They want to be present fathers, but there's this like stigma of what we've been taught the last few decades of
Yes.
dads need to work their ass off. They need to be the provider, XYZ. And I think there's a little bit of truth to that, but also I think both can be true. I think now we're in a beautiful time where you can make money at home. You might not have a Rolls Royce or a Ferrari, but hey, listen, you can make a good living at home, both of you, and you could share responsibilities, have a nice little income, and
No
again, will you be
cost.
yeah, exactly. Will you be able to buy the Starbucks every week? Probably not, but who cares? I mean, at least you're both home and you're present with your kids. And I think that's where we got to shift our mindset a little bit.
I think one of the things you've said a couple different things about, like, from the margaritas on the beach to the Starbucks every week, it's shifting your
Yeah,
priorities too.
totally.
You,
Yeah.
it's not, I remember another guest was like, we used to go on all these big vacations to Italy, to Rome, to skiing. Now we go to California, like 7 hours away, to grandparents. That's not, in the past, that is not a vacation. Now we look forward to it. That's how we want to spend our vacations.
Yeah.
No, we couldn't afford the other ones with our kids. But
Yeah.
we didn't really want them either. And so
Yeah.
it's if you had asked your margarita self, you would have been like, never, that's never happening. But when
Totally.
you get there and you view it through that perspective, it makes sense. Tell
Yeah.
me about you. I love this too, because again, I think it's you being introspective, or maybe that's not the right word, but I'm going to stick with it.
Thank you. I like
You
it.
said 4 years ago, this is pre-pregnancy,
Mm,
you started your own business and went to working at home so that you could be a present father before your wife got pregnant. So I
that's right.
really want to dive into how you did that, how
Mm.
you were able to switch over earning an income. I get the why. I think it's all the other things, because I've worked from home for like a decade, so I get it.
Right on. Yeah. No, I think I've always kind of had like an entrepreneurship mentality, I think. So that was the end all be all. It was just the question of how I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And when I was working for a corporation, I worked for a couple big Fortune 500 companies like Coca-Cola, Monster Energy. There was this rising company called Focus, which was in the beverage category as well. And all these companies I worked for and got promoted in and climbed the corporate ladder. Monster Energy specifically, I was up in the marketing department, a couple people down from like the CMO and the big boys of marketing. And I really enjoyed it and I loved it. It was like a dream job. And unfortunately, we didn't really see eye to eye with what I was doing on my spare time. See, on my spare time, even when I was employed with them on the weekends, we would have events that I'd be in charge of organizing and kind of curating and managing athletes and contracts and all this type of stuff. But I would also go and film, like on my free time, those athletes, those events. And I just had a really good time editing videos. And
Yeah.
I would send it to my boss and be like, "Hey man, look at this. I put it together." They'd be like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Well, all right, fuck you, whatever. I'll just do it on my I'll do it on my own." So I ended up just doing stuff on my own and posting it to my own YouTube channel. And I really just enjoyed the whole process of like filming and editing and, not really getting the likes or the follows from it, but just like, I don't know, you watch something you created and it's like, it's kind of a cool feeling. And then you fast forward a few years later when I kept moving up the corporate ladder, then eventually they told us, "Hey, listen, we need you to be 100% into Monster." And okay, what do you mean? Well, we saw that you have this podcast and you're talking about another beverage. And I go, "Well, yeah, but it's not like an energy drink. It was a buddy of mine owned a tea company, like tea
Okay.
bag company.
Yeah.
And I just talked about it on my show." "Well, that's a no-no.
Oh,
You can't do that on the weekends, bucko." I go, "That's interesting." So laid me off for that. 10 years in the company.
wow.
And so that kind of hurt. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. That was my first taste of like That was the first time I've gotten laid off. I was in my 30s. And that was my first taste of like corporate. They just think you're like a number. But hey, all is good. I still had my little content thing I was doing on the side. I was making videos and making a little bit of money here and there. So I kept doing that. But then I got a great job offer from a company called Focus, and it was a startup beverage company. And they knew my experience at Monster and Coke, and they immediately gave me the job, twice as much money as Monster. So I was like, oh, hello, here we go. So I'm making $250,000 a year, and I'm working right below the owner. And I'm like, this is beautiful. I'm there for over a year, and the whole company shuts down. Hemorrhaging money the whole time, didn't even know, filed for bankruptcy. Okay. Now we got a curveball, because now this is our IVF process, how we were starting. So we were relying on all that income coming in, and I got laid off immediately there. And then again, I won't go through the whole story, but the literally weeks after that, we're going through this process, and I found out I have a tumor in my lung. So I ended up having to get the right lobe, or excuse me, the lower lobe of my right lung, the whole thing removed. So I have about a third of my right lung removed still. It doesn't grow back, if anybody's curious.
No, it does not.
So that shit's gone. So that happened. And as I was going through the surgery and dealing with all that, the recovery was gnarly. I was stuck in the hospital. They were still kind of strict with COVID about having visitors. So my wife wasn't even allowed to come and see me and stay with me. But then the last day I was in the hospital, my wife's father passed away.
Oh my gosh.
So I get out of the hospital. Of course, I rush home. My wife was in tears because my dad picked me up. She didn't obviously even want to come to the hospital. And I couldn't even hug my wife because of I have my entire right side is stitched up and bleeding. So that was like right there. That was like, and again, we're a year in now of IVF, negative pregnancy test. So it's like all that coupled with her father and coupled with this lung surgery. And it's like everything's against us. And that, again, I think that's what pushed me over the edge. Is after I healed, after I comforted my wife and we were able to spend some time together. Thankfully, we're good at saving. So we were fine, but it took me about 6 months to figure out a business plan to start my own business. And that's when I just went all in with a content agency, because I'm like, there's no freaking way that this is going to happen again. I don't care how good the company is.
Yeah.
I'm going all in on myself. And that's what happened. So still to the day, I have the content agency that I started where I had $0 in the bank. And now year over year, we're making $100,000 a year, where I work with brands to help them elevate their content. I manage social media. I create videos for brands. I do podcast coaching. I have my own podcast that I monetize. And I'm just doing a plethora of different things in the content space. And it's been awesome. And I'm very grateful. And it's been a wild journey, but everything happens for a reason, I feel like.
I am so proud of you. Like, I am just, that is oh my gosh. So my grandmother, when she was alive, had lung cancer and they had to remove a lobe. So I remember vividly that surgery and recovery. And holy cow, Tony.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's
I got some cool scars from it though, but it sucks.
I mean, it was gnarly. It was gnarly. So you're like, yeah, and I had a tumor and I had part of my lung removed. But I'm like, no, I was there when, not with you, but like I was there when that surgery happened. And holy cow, that's awful.
Yeah, the worst part of it was I don't know if it happened to her, but they had to have the tube for recovery.
Yep.
Ooh, that was the worst, because every time you talk, the tube moves in your lungs.
Yeah.
I get chills. I literally have chills just thinking. Oh, no.
Gross. So
anyway,
I want you to talk about, I want to end on human dad.
Right on.
So you've done all of these things, but really, I think for dads that are already dads, or people that are becoming dads, and you don't realize what's going to hit you till it hits you, even with different experiences, I think leveling up as a dad generally needs to be more intentional. And so I want to end the podcast on human dad.
Right on. No, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like if you're if you're getting anything from my rants, it's that I am a little bit stoic, and I always have been, and I've always had the attitude of we're all human, and if some guy cuts me off, I'm the type of person to be like, he probably has to take a dump. It's all good. Like, this guy, he's just human. He's just like me. He's no better. He's no worse. Let's just take it easy. So I've always kind of had that mentality. Even my podcast that I've started 6 years ago is called Humanity and Hashtags. So I've always kind of had this like human element to my content and to my personality. And when I started to figure out how can I add on to what I'm already doing, but make it dad centric, it was I wanted an apparel brand that wasn't like the rest of the apparel brands. And there's some great apparel brands out there specifically for dads, but all of them, I mean, you can Google it. You can say just dad hat, and all of them are the same. The fonts are the same on the hats. They're all it's almost confusing. Like, is this all one company? But it's like
Yeah.
6 different companies that all have the same logo and the same font. And I'm like, let's switch it up. Let's be the liquid death of dad apparel. Like let's be the disruptor. And more specifically, make really good high quality products that dads like to wear, number one. But number two, from a content standpoint, how can we make this like relatable where dads watch it and be like, that happened to me, or I'm thinking that. And I think that's what's missing in the dad apparel space, where there's not a lot of brands talking about the truth and the chaotic mess of being a father, and the imperfect situations that you get into, and just kind of being yourself, not perfect. So that's exactly how Human Dad came about, where we're human first, dad always. So that way, hopefully when you wear our swag and you watch our content, you think to yourself, listen, I am a dad, but I'm a human first, and I could just take a breather, and we're all doing our best. You don't have to be perfect. It's just about showing up. So that's what happened.
Tony, thank you so much. You have been such a blast. What a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate you.